Legal cases, legal issues, legal matters. You're watching WFTV's Law Talk with anchor Christopher Heath and expert legal analyst, attorney Mark NeJame.
All right, let's talk about some of the current cases, issues, and legal matters that our viewers are talking about. Joining me today is legal analyst Mark NeJame of the NeJame Law Firm, and John Zielinski, a senior partner in the civil litigation division over there. When we talk about auto coverage, most of us should have auto coverage if we're driving around in Central Florida, but sometimes either through bank account errors, you're not paying attention, coverage can lapse, and that's where things can get real thorny real quick.
It can impose, you're right, of course, and it can impose great liability, even if it's a good faith mistake on your part, not necessarily on the insurance company's part, but your part, and you're without coverage, then you get involved in an accident or you get sued, you're stuck, and the insurance company, who are not usually your friend, are going to simply say they denied coverage, and you become personally liable for that accident or that injury.
And it can happen, John. This can happen. I mean, you change banks, you know, maybe something happens, you got identity fraud, so you freeze all your accounts, and for whatever reason, that payment doesn't come out, or you just let it lapse because you're shopping around for other coverage. There's a lot of vulnerability there in that interim, whether you intended it or not.
No, absolutely, and we're defending a young couple that found themselves in that situation where they actually had insurance coverage, but for one vehicle, and they had two vehicles, and the one that got in the devastating accident is the vehicle without coverage. So what do you do in those circumstances? Or, what if your insurance is capped at $100,000, and there's been unfortunately a spinal injury, or left somebody with no use of their legs or arms, or worse, all. Those are catastrophic, and nobody can handle the damages that would be attributable to an accident of that level without insurance. And so if there's a cap of $100,000, or if you're without the insurance, what do you do in those circumstances? Well, you need legal representation in order to help guide you through. Sometimes you can work with the plaintiff's attorney on a cap situation that most of the attorneys are trying to get the coverage through the insurance company. They're not really looking to stick it to the driver. And if you can work that out, and we've done that in cases, that's a successful result for the client in those types of cases.
There's a lot of exposure, though. Either way, there's a ton of exposure, right, Mark?
Tremendous exposure, and then if you have to hire your own attorney, that's not inexpensive, compounded with the damages that could be awarded against you. So it is important. And in this age of technology, we were talking before we went on the air, it used to be people would get things in the mail and they might be missed in the mail, and then you would have liability. Well, now if something goes to your spam filter, and so you really do need tickle systems set up, and you need systems set up to make sure you don't miss anything. As you pointed out when we were talking, you can get a text on your phone or whatever, but it's still your responsibility. And if it lapses, you do not have the protection that you think you might have. And so it's really important to stay current on your insurance payments.
And John, that's it. I mean, it comes down to responsibility. And that's the whole point of having insurance, is that you have insurance, I have insurance. We're both out there driving. We're both assuming some sort of coverage for ourselves and for an accident. But the responsibility ultimately falls on you to pay the bill and stay current and know what kind of coverage you've got.
Absolutely. And if that catastrophic accident happens while you're in a lapse situation, or you don't have a sufficient amount of insurance, it can force you to make decisions. Are you going to go into bankruptcy in order to try and avoid? And are you eligible? Because there's some accidents you might not be eligible for bankruptcy. And so these kind of things are life-changing to, just because of an auto accident, which happen every day.
And let me say, this is not only applicable to auto insurance and such. Your life insurance policy, all of a sudden, nobody really knows exactly when they're going to die. And the fact is that if you lapse on your life insurance policies and all, then you leave your family or whoever your designees are, your beneficiaries are. So all of your insurance policies, you need to make sure, because there's a variety of them. But you could really end up, having all your financial planning, and it's happened, we've seen it happen, where somebody doesn't make their payment. They think that their family's going to be covered when they're gone, and the family finds out that there was a policy that might have lapsed.
Yeah, and this is why, again, we started off by saying, it's ultimately your responsibility to know these things, but if, in fact, you find yourself in one of these gaps, either through no fault of your own or just carelessness, you're probably going to need an attorney, to somebody to navigate you through this, because it's going to get pretty hairy pretty quick.
And you speak, lastly, yes, and sometimes it's not your fault. And then you do have to go and fight the insurance company, who are behemoths financially and skilled in these issues. But yes, you know, you see cases where somebody says, but I took care of it, and then they were still denied coverage. That's where you, unfortunately, but necessarily, with necessity, need to bring in a lawyer.
Right.
And one last point I want to make, if you allow, is that it's a good idea to review this stuff on an annual basis, is to sit down, pull those policies, make sure that you're covered and that the coverage amounts are adequate.
John, I appreciate it. Mark, as always, thank you very much. If you'd like to watch this Law Talk or any of our others, visit our website, wftv.com/legal, or join us each week right here on Facebook. I'm Christopher Heath, and thanks for watching.
WFTV's Law Talk was brought courtesy of the Personal Injury and Accident Division of NeJame Law.